Typically, I like test levels for a female athlete in bodybuilding as a whole, not necessarily the bodybuilding division. I like to see them above 40 nanograms per deciliter. I do place a lot of emphasis on the lab work because what you'll see is that the reference range does vary pretty heavily, just even based on who you get the labs done through. Now, it's not to say that if someone is under 40 nanograms per deciliter that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, in addition to lab work, we also have to look at how the client feels. So symptoms, are a good and important aspect to monitor when you're adjusting test levels or really making the assessment whether test levels need to even be adjusted. Now, is that to say if someone is at 40 nanograms per deciliter, they wouldn't be better off at 90? Well, they might be. It really is dependent on the individual. Am I going to encourage someone to go up to 90 if at 40 they feel really good and they see an improvement in, potentially symptoms they were experiencing prior? Ultimately, no. I mean, if someone feels good from an improvement, let's say they're at 5 or 10 nanograms per deciliter, we bring them to 40 and it's a complete 180. I mean, there is significant improvements in their day-to-day life and how they feel. Well, let's sit there for a while. I mean, there's no rush to get them up to 90. Now, typically what I see is even women going from like sub 10 all the way to 70, 80, 90. Stable serum levels don't really settle until about week 5, week 6. It's typically why I like to look at test levels at that point and not sooner. And the second part of this question was regarding lowering cholesterol. So it's really important to understand the actual breakdown of what is elevated on a lipid panel, because you can have elevated LDL without an elevation in triglycerides. And this is something that, quite frankly, I would want you to get a fractionated panel done. That's something that you would go to a provider and request. You essentially are wanting to look at the particle size of the LDL and ensure that it in fact is small LDL particles and not large. Large LDL particles are not as negatively impactful as small ones. Small ones can actually get through the tissues, and again, this is one of those things. I'm not going to talk about it as if it's within my scope as a fitness coach. This is something I would want you to work with a specialist on. But regardless, if you're interested in lowering your LDL, I mean, some lifestyle modifications that you can make in order to do so. Obviously, losing weight, it's a very good one. If you find that your BMI is 30 or above, I mean, like losing weight, that should help bring it down. Managing stress. So, I mean, both perceived and real, taking a audit of what aspects of your life are stressful and figuring out, okay, is there any room for modification? Fiber intake, that has been shown to also lower LDL, increase HDL. So psyllium husk, I would recommend the capsules, not necessarily the powder. I hate the powder, it's disgusting. And the capsules also make it easier to titrate. Niacin, I like the flush, a lot of people don't, so I mean, like, use at your discretion. And then I think it's plant sterols and stanols. Not as familiar with these, but there does seem to be really good research supporting both of those increasing HDL.